to have, what criteria you need to meet in order to get a secondary from your schools. If I have to put this in the simplest of terms, is you're trying to make yourself into a puzzle piece that fits in the school's puzzle for this upcoming class. I'm back. I realized there were not any videos posted last week. My deepest and sincerest apologies. The camera is still broke. The show ghetto. Medical school, it takes up a lot of time, which I would have figured, but like I didn't really know it was going to be that hard and that time consuming, but we live and we learn. In my next life I probably won't be doing this again, but yeah, it's cool or whatever. So in this video I'm going to be giving you guys some tips for secondaries. I had some people ask me to make a video on secondaries and to give some tips out on that, so this is a little impromptu video after class and lecture and a little bit of studying. I'm in my living room. Oh, I can't wait to do an apartment tour, but that can only happen when my apartment's together. So yeah, I'm gonna share some tips with you all for your secondary applications. A little background information is my name is Piper and I'm a current M1. I just graduated from the University of Georgia this past May, and yeah, I'm now, tomorrow will mark my first month of medical school. So if you guys are interested, make sure you keep on watching and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and to subscribe. Basic information. The way that medical schools work is that it's basically a fucking flies all over my fucking apartment. What the frick? I like to think as the primary application being a very general application, even though that's kind of like not true, because if you've completed your primary, you know it's not very generally-ish at all. But basically your primary application consists of your personal statement, your transcript, your work and activities, and that's really about it. Your secondary application, it's definitely more specific to that school, and it's definitely more targeted to the school and like what you can bring to the school and the school's mission statement, like do you align with it and do you not. And so how do I want to say this? Your secondary application, I feel like, is definitely a little bit more important than your primary application. And here's why, which this will be like my first tip or advice. With your secondaries, like I said, schools can decide whether or not you get a secondary. And that is very much so dependent on the school. I feel like it's very variable. One thing that I would use would be the AAMC. They have a little website. I'm gonna put the name on it because I'm totally blanking on it, but it was basically, I think it was like the msar profile. Like I said, I'm gonna put the name if that was wrong, but basically the AAMC is literally in charge of medical schools and the whole application process. And so they basically have this database where they collect all the data from all the schools, and it costs $25, I believe, and it's literally every school that's credentiated or who has credentials for the MD programs, and it gives you a variety of information from like their average MCAT scores, average GPA, when they literally start class, how much it is, what the breakdown is of their student like composition and their student body, all of that. And more importantly, it gives you the criteria of the schools for which you need to get a secondary. So if I have to put this in the simplest of terms, the MSAR profile, it will literally tell you what you need to have, what criteria you need to meet in order to get a secondary from your schools. I feel like a lot of people would save money if they actually, you know, had a better understanding of the process and stuff, because I know someone who submitted their primaries, and I would look at this before submitting your primaries. Here's why. Because let's say I know someone who submitted their primaries to all of these different schools and they were never going to qualify for a secondary. And I was just like, oh my God, bless your heart, bless your soul. I'm so sorry that you wasted all of that money. Some schools, they may require you to have a 507 on your MCAT or like a specific GPA in order to be considered competitive. Because in order to get an interview, you have to basically pass your secondary. So kind of the sequence, how it goes is your primary, your secondary, and then an interview. Logically does not make sense to submit your application, like to submit a primary to a school where you don't qualify to get a secondary. But I feel like there are some schools that will automatically send you a secondary. However, if you don't have those screening criteria, they're not going to read your secondary, and I mean, you still would have wasted your money. Please, please, please get that msar profile, or at least just do some further research on those schools to see what their criteria is, because that can save you a lot of money, and it can tell you like where you kind of stand in terms of like where you have a shot at maybe getting an interview or an acceptance. I wouldn't just apply all willy-nilly, willy-dilly, whatever the saying is, to these schools. So that was a mouthful. My next advice would to be pre-write your secondaries. I know that it can feel like a big weight lifted off of your shoulders when you submit your primary, and you're kind of like, oh, like I got weeks of processing. I don't need to start on my secondary till they finally like say my primary is good and verify my transcript. No, don't do that, because you're gonna get your secondaries all pretty much at the same time depending on these schools. I remember that once my primary was like processed and transcript verified, I literally got my secondaries, most of them all on the same day, or at least all of them within that same week. And these applications are no joke. That is because they're more specific to those schools, and you're obviously trying to get an interview. And if you want to interview, you just want to have time to craft the most perfect secondary ever, because if you even get a secondary and they're looking at it, you're already lucky, because they don't do that for everyone. So I would definitely recommend that you guys pre-write your secondaries. I would probably take a week off after I submit my primary, but get to writing your secondary. Like, treat it like your primary. Don't treat your secondary any less. If anything, I would probably treat it just a tiny bit more than your primary, because this is like what the committees are probably really looking at, like seeing if you are a good fit for the school, seeing if you really understand and align with their mission statement and all of that. Some schools, they might have the questions on their website. However, you can just also Google. Like, Google is free, and there's a ton of stuff on Google or on Reddit or even Student Doctor Network that will have some of the secondary questions. And chances are, a lot of the application cycles, these schools recycle their questions. So I mean, I would honestly just go ahead and like use the questions that you could find online and start off as that. And I mean, maybe one question, I think I had maybe one school where one question like might have been different, but I was still able to make something shake from what I had already written. The thing is, I mean, you just don't want to have not enough time to craft the perfect secondary essay, because they are just, or even more as important. So pre-writing helps you save a bunch of time, because like I said, you're going to get these secondaries all around the same time, and it's going to be very hard to be able to give each and every one your love, and like you're like, I want to get into this school, if you just feel so overwhelmed by the amount of stuff. Your secondaries could range from like 4 to 5 questions to 6 questions, and they're pretty much all like essay styled questions, so it takes a long time to craft something really well. They're like mini essays, like, you know, the mission statement is X, Y, and Z. How do you align with this? How do you envision yourself as a physician? Odds are you're not really going to be able to reuse what you wrote for one school, because I mean, mission statements are different, programs are different, the research at each institution could be different. So I feel like you can't really recycle a lot of things in your secondary unless they ask really similar questions, but that's kind of a gamble. So I would just take the time to write each secondary specific to that school. You have like 2 weeks to submit your secondary. And that goes on to my next tip slash advice, is to take the time to research these schools. I mean, when I was writing my secondaries, I was being very specific in what I wanted to be involved in. So I was trying to find what research the school was currently interested in, maybe some pipeline programs that schools were involved in, and, you know, explaining how I could contribute to that, or how I could contribute to the research, or like if they're public health really heavy, you know, I would bring in my background from my curriculum come at UGA and expand on what I've done here and what I can do at that school, you want to be very, very, very specific in the school. Like, I would even be pulling stuff from their mission statement in accordance to how I would like to align my future endeavors as a physician. And I think doing that, it really exemplifies and shows that you, A, you know a lot about the school, and B, you have logistical reasons and you're confident as to what you can bring and contribute to the school. You want to sell yourself really well in these secondaries, and to do that you have to really understand the school and what they're trying to do, what kind of physicians they're trying to build. I mean, even just bringing in, like, I like how there's an integrated curriculum, or maybe their curriculum is very hands-on from the beginning. Like, how can that help you? You want to be as specific as you can when you're writing these secondaries as to how these schools can help build you into the physician you want to become, and how your own personal ideas and wants and needs fits into that school. You're trying to make yourself into a puzzle piece that fits in the school's puzzle for this upcoming class, right? And I'm not gonna lie, sometimes you have to switch it up sometimes, you know, when it comes to being specific for the schools. If the school is heavily focused on primary care, you better have something to write about primary care. If a school is focused on research more, you better have something to write about research. Like, you have to become a jack of all trades when you're writing these secondaries, because you're trying to get in, you are trying to fit into their puzzle piece, you know? Okay, so another tip that I would probably say for your secondary is to not repeat anything that you put in your primary. The committee has read your primary application. Why would you be redundant and repeat things in your secondary application? Boring. Between the time that you get your secondary, you better go get some experience. But I would just encourage you to really think about things that have happened in your life, and to think about all of the experiences that have shaped you today and like why you want to go into medicine. I know it's really hard because you're writing so much, and it's kind of just like, what else can I like give and tell? You just never know. You just never know. Like, I know for me, for my schools that were really heavy on primary care, I was able to write about how my mom, she actually had to give birth in a whole separate county, because the county that she had lived in, they had no OBs at that hospital. And you know, it's kind of like looking back at it, if my mom had like an emergency happen, who knows what would have happened, because there weren't any OBs in her county. That's why primary care medicine is so important, and why we need more primary care physicians, you know? So that's what I mean, where I'm like, ask your family questions, ask your parents, like, have we ever really been influenced by like insurance or medicine or what? So you can kind of just build upon that and craft a really well coherent secondary that may fit into those schools' missions and stuff. So that would probably be my tip. It can be hard, but y'all can do it. And then my last tip / advice would to be, take your secondary and have someone else read it. When I say someone else, I probably mean like your pre-health advisor at your university, or whoever you might be leaning on for your application process. This, just because you have a secondary application, it just does not mean that you're going to get an interview. So like I said, you really want to take the time to craft the perfect secondary essay. I mean, this perfect secondary application. And so that just means like going through a couple of revisions, having other people read it, getting feedback from it, seeing how you can make it better, and like submitting the best secondary that you crafted. It's almost like your primary. It's just less stuff to fill out. But I promise you guys, at the end, like when you get the interview notification, it will be very rewarding to have taken all of the time in crafting the perfect application. So yeah, that is my little impromptu secondary advice video. I hope it was helpful for you guys. I really know that it can be a daunting and like terrifying experience. Like, am I gonna get a secondary? I need to get an interview. Like, you guys got it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and to subscribe. Make sure to leave down some comments below and let me know what other videos that you guys want to see from me. I have a couple uploading in a couple of weeks about me starting school, so I'm kind of excited for y'all to see that. But yeah, let me know if there's any questions and if there's anything else you guys want me to share. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.